that second. So you can go mid next week and see what kind of crappy stuff I put in there. Hopefully tomorrow or something like that will be updated. Here's a link to the meeting video in case you miss one of our precious meeting presentations. You may go look at that. And he's got them, Leroy's got them back for the history of them.
Most of them.
Most of them. If you want to do Google Plus, if you're a tinkerer, and we had a couple this week, Raspberry Pi questions, there was another guy. And I don't give out the names up front.
Yeah.
I tell them I don't give out the names. Number two, you can go look at Google Plus, and there's a site for the club. And I don't give them the link to the club on the outside. When you get your email, I'll give you the link. There's the link. You have to show up and you get rights. Otherwise, I don't know you. I'm protecting my members is my story. And you'll see that. You'll see this, and then you'll see the meetup. It'll be two different things. Meetup might have names. The other one won't have names. Just the way you are. Ethernet over power lines test. I got an AV200 adapter that will extend your Ethernet port. My objective is the barn, and I got it up first time. The link light comes up and stays on. I lost a camera out there, I think, to the cold, and I put an outdoor camera out there. It was an indoor camera. I put an outdoor camera up there. It's been up ever since. I went out and looked at it's got a link light on it, and the link light was still on. So I think my camera didn't take the cold well, but it looks, the power lines adapters look very nice to me. It doesn't cover all of my barn for some reason. I may be on these are power lines. So on your house wiring, you got 220, you got two 115 lines, and you got a center tap effectively. So you're going to put the signal on one of those 115 volt lines, and half of your outlets may not connect. So you got to figure out which ones you got where.
They sell a thing, you unplug your dryer, plug this in the socket, and plug the dryer into it. It's basically a cap.
Yeah, capacitor crossover.
Yeah. And that gets you on both sides, both phases.
Yeah.
Those are pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, it should be. It's probably just a capacitor.
Yeah, I think it is.
Probably need a 0.01 600 volt oil filled. Use an electrolytic if you want to treat, though.
Yeah. Done that.
They'll blow. Put an electrolytic or polarized. They do sell special electrolytics, duals back to back, but don't do it. Well, yeah, that's the idea. But I'm impressed so far with that. I've used extenders, but they're not terribly solid. I think I may have some interference coming from something behind me that comes through and wipes out the Wi-Fi signals occasionally. Okay.
Power line Ethernet, you can share between houses pretty easily too.
Yeah.
As long as you're all in the same tap of the transformer.
Yeah, you're by default, you are doing that with the guys that are off the same transformer on the same phase.
Yeah.
Usually a transformer is a phase, you know that. It's 220 is single phase, so that you're off the same transformer, you're off the same phase. But that's, yeah, okay, we're not going to go there. So at the bottom of the meeting notes, we have last meeting's meeting notes. If you missed something, if somebody says I'm going to put a link with the last week's meeting notes, we'll try to put them down there. Here is the link to GitHub. Leroy has some stuff there, and what's his face? He's not here, so I can't remember his name. Jeremy has stuff there, and I don't know who all. But there's stuff there if you want to go fish. Also, we have links to member projects. We have pages. We have folders available. If you want to publish your projects online and refer people to them, or say, look at my project. Leroy's had a bunch of projects on this page. He's now more probably GitHub, but he's had some good projects there. Frank's had some good projects there. I've got some projects, some easy projects there. And if you want to publish your own project, you can put it there if you want to. You can, if you have your own folder, just tell me where it is and I'll put a link out there. Don't care. This is all just Google stuff, Google Drives. Club participation notes. I keep track of what people have done. It's just I take the listing here, and when you've done your thing, I put a copy in the list. And so we keep a list of what people have done. So if you want to scrounge around and see what people have been doing, that's a good place to look. Techno scraps, that's just junk. The trash can transport is a club project thing that we've been working on only for a couple of years. And we're supposed to, this project is supposed to transport your trash cans from your garage to the street. And I have the most progress on that. And my latest transition, I've got the wagon and I've got the drive attached, except that I've learned that I don't want to use a chain drive. We've run into hub motors, and that's just wonderful. And they have the motor built in, and they have the Hall effect transducers built in, and the motors built in, and all you do is strap it on. And they have a cheap controller. They will control it for you, and you just give it a analog signal telling it how fast you want it to go. And it handles it. So, and my direction is to use a compass for guidance and possibly some other stuff that other people are working on for cross-checking. You don't want to go too far. You don't want to end up in the street. So you can count the steps and get a good approximate distance, but you need self-checking and other stuff. We can talk about that someday. Anything else? We promote the library. You get books over the internet here. A lot of good books up there. A lot of technical readings also up there too, guys. So looks like we're past 5:30.
Just a little.
Are you ready?
I guess I'm ready.
Leroy's in charge of our program today. Raspberry Pi demo using the Arduino and Particle Cloud ID. Yay!
Yeah. All right.
Oh, one more thing. The Miami University monthly, I guess, they have a historical meeting for geezers, older folks, I guess, and they have it at oh geez, at the lodge over there, Verity Lodge.
Yeah.
The last one was on WPFB radio, history of WPFB radio in Middletown, and had some good historical information. Cool. Okay, it's your floor.
All right.
Go ahead and set up.
We need to plug the just so I can get it onto our Wi-Fi and stuff.
Okay.
So I actually have three different, well, actually there's like several different demos, but there's three different methods to doing this. And our first one is going to be with the Arduino IDE. So we're actually going to program over Wi-Fi using the Arduino IDE. We're going to program the Raspberry Pi. And we're going to flash LEDs.
You're going to program the Raspberry Pi using the Arduino.
Using the Arduino IDE. At least for
Okay, so do you have an Arduino emulator on the Raspberry Pi?
No.
You're going to be programming it in Raspberry in C?
Uh-huh.
using the Arduino.
using the Arduino. And the first thing we need to
So
do,
who's doing the translating?
It's just
Well,
text. Is it just text or?
the Raspberry Pi can be programmed in C. Somebody set up a board emulator for the Arduino IDE to talk to the GPIO and everything, basically making it look like it's an Arduino board, sort of, not really, but sort of. So it actually compiles, and then it will transfer the program over using Wi-Fi, and then the program will start running on the Raspberry Pi.
So the Raspberry Pi is emulating running.
The Raspberry Pi is not emulating anything.
The Raspberry Pi is running code.
The Arduino software is compiling code down to
Raspberry
Atom, whatever.
ARM,
Yeah.
ARM8,
Something with an A.
something like that.
But is it emulating what an Arduino would do?
Nope, it's not
Okay,
emulating
it's
anything.
just doing what Raspberry Pi does. Raspberry Pi code and there we go.
All right.
Is it Arduino-like coding?
Oh, it's
It's Arduino code.
Yeah.
And the Raspberry Pi acts like an Arduino?
To be fair, Arduino code is wiring code.
Yes.
It's not Arduino specific. It's like C or C++. It's a language that, as long as you have interpreters, or I'm sorry, as long as you have compilers that can compile it for different architectures, should work pretty much anywhere.
Okay, the trouble is it's got to remap the I/O.
Right. So it's not going to be able to use the same addressing as AtMega. But you can't put an AtMega code, piece of code written for an AtMega on an Uno. It doesn't have the capability. So
As long as they're within limits, you can, but yeah.
not if it addresses any of the I/O that's
The additional I/O, yeah. But the lower, if you just use a lower I/O, you could.
Yeah, so this just uses the lower I/O.
Does it use the, for I/O, does it use the Arduino syntax for the I/O?
I never saw this before.
Okay. Does it use the Arduino? Okay. So when you say the first output,
I can't get it to connect. I can't get it to connect.
must be the router. It's our story. Gotta go along here.
Can't spell either. Well, if this doesn't work, we will try something else, because I had 3 different things. One of the 3 should actually work.
Okay, and that looks like you're,
I'm booting to a Raspberry desktop.
okay. So this is the output of the Raspberry Pi display driver, okay.
I've actually got 3 different partitions, 3 different operating systems on this 64 gig Pi. So this partition I had set up for doing pure C code. And that's what the pure C code looks like. So, as Steve said, there's the very first thing you see up there says wiring. So that's a library that basically tells the compiler how to.
Is it emulating Arduino IO?
No, it's its own. It's actually its own I/O.
Okay.
But it's added commands like the pin mode and the digital write and the delay.
Okay. Okay.
So it's
So it acts like Arduino.
Sorta. When you go pure C, it's very, very different because you get rid of the loop and the setup and its main, and
I see.
you have to jump around with some other stuff in there, but it works. And
it's building a shell that acts like an Arduino kind of thing.
Well,
Okay.
it acts like the Arduino acts like wiring.
So does this generate like a command, a Linux command, when you do something with the Arduino? I'm thinking in my mind, Linux is running.
Linux is running, yes. Yeah. So, so that's the Blink C program, and you compile that with a command like GCC, which is running on the Arduino too. When you go and you upload a sketch to the Arduino, it issues a GCC command specific for that board that you're looking for.
Okay, the blink.c command is Arduino-like.
It's a C program.
But it has the built-in loop and all that?
No, there's no loop.
It is C.
It's C.
And by pulling in the headers, you give names to I/O points.
Oh, okay, you're mapping their I/O. Okay.
So you're compiling that on the Pi.
I compile that on the Pi. I compile that with that particular command. So that would fade the red LED, and you put the extra little thing out there so that you tell the compiler where to find the wiring library.
Is that library included by default, or did you have to install that?
I installed it, but I read somewhere after I installed it that it's included by default. So I'm running, I guess technically I'm running a more current version because I installed it from the source. From the source. I had some issues with that as well. But it is basically, so if we run the blink, it's just going to blink one of the LEDs.
So is that like a job being scheduled with
No, that's running in the foreground.
That's running.
Oh, okay.
That's currently running. See, it's saying blink on, blink off, and if you actually kind of watch, it's actually. And then I've also compiled Blink 2, which.
So you could run Blink 2 and Blink 1 at the same time.
Yes.
Yes, but what?
Well, I actually ran into a problem doing that with the Arduino code. It actually unmounted my SD card and then gave me all kinds of hate and discontent.
You're trying to write to the same device with both code. You expect problems.
It was not pretty.
So you really couldn't run that in the background.
I could.
If you run in the background, then theoretically you should be able to run to it.
If you run it in the background, you need to. This is real simple. It's just on and off. But if you run it in the background, you need to set up checks that another program isn't already using those GPIO ports, and you can do that. But it's way more complicated to do.
You didn't want to just do that right now.
I fought a little bit with it. I won't lie, it wasn't quite as fun as I thought it would be to do this. And I really wanted the Arduino part of it to work, because that's the part that I think would be the most interesting. So the thing that I ran into bad problems with was when I actually tried to use the pulse width modulation pin with in pure C, and now it's not working. It just unmounted itself, I bet. It did something weird. The whatever it's doing internally has unmounted, and it doesn't give you any errors. It just sort of locks the board up. It didn't lock the board up that time. Let's reboot. That it should start fading. There's only 4 pulse width modulation pins. The wiring library makes for some soft pulse width modulation, but it seemed like it was complicated to set up too.
I thought the pins supported PWM natively, but at least 2 or 3 of them.
4 of them do.
Okay.
But it's either in the wiring library or it's just something weird, because it just was not working right. And it unmounted the thing a couple of times, and it did other weird stuff.
Yeah, that it shouldn't ever do.
I kind of thought the same thing.
You may want to try changing the mode on the device pin, on the pins in the device thing, and not running it with sudo.
No,
that should be safer.
if I ran it without sudo, that's when I started running into all kinds of problems. I know. I said the same thing.
I wonder if some of that I/O is tied directly to the SD card. I wouldn't think so. You shouldn't do that.
I said the same thing, but that's the fade, the C sketch, or the C program for fade. Now see if I do fade. SD card removed. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
It makes absolutely no sense. But if I do the sudo, it seems to play a little friendlier.
What pins are you using?
That's pin 18. Yeah, let's go ahead and check the files.
Is there more things you can do than link? Or theoretically, you should be able to do most Arduino kinds of stuff.
In theory, it should do most stuff. I'll show you on the desktop or on the laptop, the Arduino stuff. See, but it's not fading. It was fading. It actually was working at the house. Fade.
That's the router.
It's the library. It's the curse of the library. But see, it didn't unmount. Go ahead.
Maybe try it on a different pin. Pin 18 is connected to the SD right pin. I don't know. That is bizarre.
Well,
You may want to try that with the built-in library. I can't imagine.
Oh, you mean get rid of the one that I downloaded? And
Yeah, I mean,
I may screw around with it more when I get home and see, but I like, let's unhook it. Let's hook this back in. I'll show them. Even though I can't really upload the sketch because apparently it's not playing friendly with me, I can still show the IDE and the setup. Did we run him off?
I didn't do that. I see you. I'm clean up against the wall. I know. That's interesting. How do you do that? Oh, okay. It's still connected. I'm still alive. Just take over. Or you want me to kill it? I'll kill it.
Cast desktop.
So I don't get it.
Cast. I got it.
Okay.
All right. So, just to prove that it actually does work, I did actually make a video. Not sure where my video
This is the Google Plus site. You have a link to it in your meeting announcements.
Router's being super slow again.
Well, I think it's their router that's being super slow. We have a 300 megabit router, more than ample for our tiny thing.
I'm going to have to play around with this a little bit more, try to figure out why I can't connect here. That's kind of weird. Of course, I'm having connection issues myself anyway. So. Come on. Well, meanwhile, while we're waiting,
You're connected.
I know I'm connected.
Hmm.
But that's blinking the two LEDs from the Arduino sketch. And you basically add the boards into the board manager. And you've got to do a couple of things setup wise on the Raspberry Pi. Basically what you're doing is you're telling it to run root. This when it uploads a sketch to the Raspberry Pi, it's running that sketch as a root user. So it's could be dangerous. You set up a telnet server so that you can see the serial console without logging into the telnet server. It just pops up and just like it was a serial console. It was actually kind of cool. I was like, that's pretty neat. I didn't know I could do that with telnet, but okay. So it basically, you write your code just like you would write it for any Arduino or Arduino-like board. They've added a couple of extra things here, like console that prints to the serial console to the TTY console, which is also gated to the telnet server. So that's what you're seeing when it prints. It prints blue and red, and it flashes the lights back and forth. And I wanted to be able to upload it and change. And we also got This actually works. This is fading the red LED up and fading it down on pin 18, and it doesn't cause any problems at all. It just works. I see the gears turning in your head. Like, why does wiring cause a problem, but the Arduino, which should be using at least part of the wiring library, cause a problem? I have no idea. But if you look at my wiring code, which I've also included somewhere, you look at the wiring code and the oh, I didn't include the, I don't have the fade code in the GitHub repository. I'm sorry. I thought I did. But if you look at the wiring code versus the the Arduino native code, you'll see what the differences actually are.
So basically, what are you doing? Sending the text over, compiling it over there, and running it over there?
It compiles it. I don't know where it actually. I think it compiles it on this machine.
It would almost have to.
This machine being the PC that you're using?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Pi?
Because it already does cross-compiling. Wouldn't be too awfully hard to add one more library.
This is that C code just to blink one LED. And this is the Raspberry or the Arduino code right next to it. So you can see there's some similar things going on, but it's really quite different when you're messing with just pure C.
More compact.
Arduino makes it nice and simple. You don't need to worry about the loop or any of that other stuff. It's just there. It just does stuff. The third thing that I was going to show, which I can't show because I can't get it to connect, is the particle cloud. Also supports Raspberry Pi now. Particle cloud is very, very, very similar to the Arduino code. It's a little bit different. There's a couple of minor differences, but basically it's very close to Arduino code. It just uploads directly, and it is super. There's one command that you have to run on the Raspberry Pi to set it up. That's it. There's no jumping through a whole bunch of hoops, setting up all kinds of telnet and root users and all this other stuff. You just set up one thing, and the particle cloud just works and is happy. And I figured out an answer for you why you'd use particle cloud versus anything else. And here's the answer. So if you
Drum roll, please.
if you got some devices remote location, but they're all connected to the Wi-Fi, Particle would make it super simple to sit at your house and reprogram those devices with new firmware. Even inside your house, like you've got your one device down in your basement, you could sit up in your office and reprogram it.
You know, you can do that with the Arduino. I mean, I've never done it.
You can do that with the Arduino, but the Arduino, you have to be connected to the same network. The Particle, it doesn't matter where. I could be in China and reprogram this thing sitting here on this table.
But can other people in China reprogram it on you?
Particle, Particle
Well,
says they're secure. They appear to be more secure than most other things. They do have a program where developers can, if you've got a product or something that you want to bring, it's a slightly different model, but the developers get access to be able to reprogram all the devices at one time instead of just a single device at one time. So I guess it's a more secure. It does set up two tokens when you install their software. Eventually it gets to a point where it says that it's setting up a claiming token, and then you have to do something over on the Particle Cloud to actually claim that device. So it does set up a couple of different tokens to talk back and forth to each other. So I would say 100%, probably not, because nothing is, but probably better than most things.
Now that you have that great capability, would most people be afraid to use it? Because hackers always figure something out.
Jeremy wouldn't use it, but
I don't know, because, I mean, well, I could show you. I actually own a bunch of Particle stuff.
But it's not something that maybe you know of now, but sort of the nature of human beings, they'll pick at it.
I like the ESP8266s. I mean, that's just me. I like them. But I like the idea of being able to program this thing in C easily program it in C.
Okay. I can see the particle board a little bit more. Even if you were using the Raspberry Pi sort of normal mode, if you want to spend the time, do a nice job. Without Arduino, even though I like Arduino.
Well,
I mean, if you were sort of a native C thinking person.
maybe that's why I started to like it a lot better, because I started to get into that thinking of how the Arduino sketches work more than how Python works or something else, Even though I could do it, I don't do it.
But you do a lot of Arduino.
Because I do a lot of Arduino stuff.
Let's let it fit my style.
Well, that's why I like doing it like this, because it does sort of fit my style. I will admit, it's not perfect. There are still problems, obviously. Unmounting an SD card is a big issue. I tried to get a couple of the LED screens to work, the OLED screens. I couldn't get them to work, which I don't think I had a problem with the work the way it was supposed to. But I think that that's all because the libraries are written for Arduino, not for Raspberry Pi. And I think that's where I had, that's where the big issues are going to come from if you go this route, because the libraries just aren't written for it.
Unless somebody about writing new libraries.
Fixes them, yeah.
I think the only big issue would be timing things. Everything else is pretty much pin's a pin.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I think, some of them, I think timing is probably what it is, but when you look in some of the libraries, they say, if AVR do this, or if
There's nothing there.
Nothing there for ARM, because who programs an ARM with the Arduino? Only crazy people. I mean, I think if it became popular to do it, I think somebody would correct those libraries and make them work, because, But I don't know. I haven't seen a way to pull, like, the library, the Python library is over or anything. So I don't know if you can do that or not.
Be able to.
It didn't quite work the way I wanted it to, but that's pretty much the story of my life. So I wanted to have fun programming it. I actually had button pushes. So we could turn the LEDs on and off with button push.
Give it a couple more weeks. You look like you don't want to invest.
This particular project, I really like the idea of being able to program it like this, but it is frustrating because there are things that just don't work, and it should be super simple to make it do it. But I know if I go into the command line and I go into a Python editor and I edit a Python thing, it just works like that. I guess I'm going to have to dust off my Python skills and relearn Python.
So who wrote this thing? I mean, this ability or this capability? And what were they thinking? They were like you, they just wanted to program with the Arduino IDE.
They just wanted, it seemed like a good idea to me. It seemed like a good idea. This is the, excuse me, this is the GitHub repository for the Arduino project that explains how to explains the motivation and how to do it and everything you need to do to make this thing work. The instructions for setting it up on the desktop machine or on the programmer are relatively simple. Install the board manager, install the GCC, done. Just like another board. The instructions for setting it up on the Raspberry Pi, and if you miss a step, you're sitting there pulling your hair out as to why it didn't work. And there's a lot of just optional steps, and there's some steps in here that if you use the Raspberry Pi configuration tool, you could do the same thing without a whole bunch of command lines to do it. Now, see, he gives you a bunch of the command lines to do it, which made me wonder why he didn't write a script that would just knock one off and leave the optional stuff for you to take care of yourself.
But then you have to write the script.
Well, you pretty much already did. It's all, you just have to put it in a shell script or something, in a bash script. So like that line right there, that would be the same for all of them except mine because I'm running three different OSs on my card. So you could just make that a script. You write this wonderful board manager and you didn't write a script. I'm just going.
Well, usually when you do stuff like this, you know, there's only so much you do. You say, that's it, I'm gonna ship it.
See this one
I'll
here.
let Leroy take care of that.
That's why it's open source.
Yeah.
So maybe because he was trying to keep track of whether it was a Pi 2 or 2B or 3. Or...
I don't know where it actually communicates back and forth as to what it is. When you select it in the board manager, it only says Raspberry Pi 2. but when you actually go to compile it, it will run it on any of the boards. So somewhere the board talks back to the compiler and says what it actually is.
Well, there's a base set of instructions that all ARM supports, so they may just limit it to that.
You might be right. Somewhere, the wiring website says that there are differences between wiring for the older boards and wiring for the newer boards. That the pin numbers are different, even though the pins are the same. So I think there might be a difference there if the pin numbers are numbered differently. So that's the one thing, that the three methods to do this all use different pin numbers. They all use an entirely different pin numbering scheme for.
It's to help you keep track of which one you're using.
Maybe. Wiring, he just came up with his own scheme altogether. Like pin 18 is actually pin 1 for wiring. I don't know why. Don't ask me. Pin 4 is pin 0, I believe. I don't know why. Don't ask me. Particle came up with it either supports the BCMO scheme or their own scheme, which actually has names like D0, D1. Seems to me like this one here supports the BCM names of the pins. So all three of them are using something slightly different, but if you know what they all use, it's not that big a deal. There's a chart. They give you. Where my thing go? The particle gives you. That's the particle pinout. This particle is these numbers right here. So you could actually address a pin as TX, which would be GPO 14. You could also just address it as pin 14, and it seems to be perfectly happy with that. And this is the wiring pinout. So his pin 14 is really pin 15 in wiring. Pin 18 is really pin 1.
It is weird.
Why? Because we have to be different. So anyway, I honestly thought that was one of the reasons why I was having problems, because when I first started messing with the wiring, I was still using the GPIO numbers, and I thought, oh, well, that's causing problems. No, I fixed that. It's still causing problems. But he makes, the wiring guy says there's differences between revision 1 and revision 2 boards. And here's the bottom chart here shows what his differences are. And apparently
Isn't that just the extra pins between the 28 and the 40?
I guess. There is a command that you can run and it'll tell you what the revision number of the board is. So maybe that's what the Arduino guy is doing, is getting a revision number and fixing the pin numbers accordingly. I don't really know. Because
that would take a lot of code to do after it's compiled. That's the sort of thing you do before you compile it. But that doesn't happen here.
I don't, like I said, I don't know. It just sort of appears on the network, and then it just sort of compiles. I thought the same thing as you, though. What's the difference? ARM7, ARM8. At some level, there are ARM5s or something, you know. At some level, when you compile that code for an ARM, it should run on every ARM. Or, you know, ARM7 and ARM8 is going to have a better instruction set, but you compile it for an ARM5, it should run on everything. But I don't know. I wanted to do, I really wanted to do a whole lot more. I picked up a couple of Western Digital, quote unquote Western Digital hard drives for it, and I've got a 1 terabyte that I picked up for $40 and a 250 gig that I picked up for I think $20, and the 64 gig was a Western Digital. It's a USB drive. They all come with like a little 4 gig SD card, and it makes it boots off the 4 gig SD card, but it partitions the USB drive or the larger hard drives, so you can run multiple OSs on it and do all kinds of really cool stuff with it. And I started playing around with it. Of course, the actual USB flash drive doesn't need any extra power. That's why it makes it perfect for picking up and carrying around. I thought, why couldn't I just use another USB stick? You know, I don't have. Why would I need to technically use a Western Digital stick? I could use my own flash stick.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just, you can, I've got a Pi that I've got a USB hard drive attached to, and you just modify the config file. Actually, the first backup it does is the SD card.
I found it interesting though. Western Digital sold
The Pi drive, yeah.
They got rid of them. They're not
Oh, really?
supporting them anymore.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Matthew, you asked about what micro would you use? Like, would you use a Uno for a production machine? That's a deep question. And if you look at your meeting announcements, that highlighted thing talks about who uses what board for what and why. This would be a good one for you to read too. You probably live this. What you use in the real world, because typically you're not going to use the Uno for a production machine. Once you advance up to an engineering level, you're not going to use a Uno. You're going to use a processor out of an Uno maybe, but there are much more options. Read that article, it's a good article. Thank you. It's not about the board, a note from the real world. Not a note from the real world, it's my notes.
Are we really in the real world?
Well,
Are we sure about that?
Let me spin my top.
Simulation.
And had a thing for CSTEM. CSTEM Studio adds curriculum for Raspberry Pi, Arduino, Lego Mindstorms. Does that have anything to do with you? Is that the teaching environment?
I don't use Lego Mindstorm. Okay, what was that again?
CSTEM.
What does it do?
It looks like it's a free training curriculum or something. So I think it's a national thing. Anybody know about CSTEM?
I know what STEM is. I don't know what C-STEM is. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay.
All the
excellent.
things we hate in this country.
CSTEM Studio is a platform for hands-on integrated learning of computing science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. CSTEM with robotics. It can be used for control multiple LinkBot, Lego, Mindstorms, EV3, Arduino boards. CSTEM Studio is developed by UC Davis CSTEM Center. I help you any?
Well, no, there's no.
Okay. Looks
They
like
do have brick and mortar buildings out.
approved educational preparation program for undergraduate, and then it's to all UC campuses.
Yeah, it's probably a system that lets you set up different experiments and have them interact well. I know with Lego Mindstorm, they have these different levels, and they have programs that they sell you with the system. That's for people who just really want to go straight down that path, and they have a lot of stuff done for them. Mine is, I think it up and we do it.
Yeah,
Let's do this experiment.
this is an organized
It's
curriculum.
organized, yeah,
Organized
it's
curriculum.
organized.
It looks like some of it may be free content.
It's probably all free, but like any system, you have to learn the system.
Yeah,
And if you're doing it on a large scale, it probably really makes a lot of sense. Like if on a campus, you're gonna set up classes, and you need a curriculum so that you have some way to support those classes, then you put a lot of effort into it.
I saw a CAN program for how to use a micrometer. It was teaching people skills like that.
Yeah.
And you had to emulate a micrometer on your screen. So you had to learn how to use the emulator to that. So it's,
Well, like they do, the A+ certification. They have some actually pretty nice simulators, so you don't have to use a PC. People can use, you don't have to actually connect the equipment. You can get the simulations, and you could actually take tests just with a desktop. And so if you wanted to teach a lot of skills, such that somebody can pass a test, it would be much better to do that than to have them just going out, getting all of these PCs and connecting them together with different kind of cables and all that.
yeah. It'd be easy to implement. You don't have all the setup.
And when you make a mistake, the machine tells you you made a mistake, maybe give you some tips, go back and try it again.
It's hard for me to get into it when they're emulating
Yeah,
everything.
having an instructor there. That's wrong.
Yeah, we're trying to think of teaching someone to use a micrometer with a computer.
I'll bet you.
Here's a micrometer. You squeeze things.
This is actually there's a real program doing that, and it's relatively successful. It really is.
Oh, they can do some miracle stuff.
When you're training newbies, these are for newbies, teaching a floor worker how to use a micrometer, and it's fixed. Yeah, it is, and it's kind of hokey, but I didn't like it because I like hands-on. But some people, you could learn a lot from it, but there are disadvantages too.
The other thing with these simulations, because we even use it for things like Word, the program is not lenient.
Yeah, exactly.
So students
You have
hate
to
it.
do exactly what they said.
I did it and it worked. Didn't do it the way I want you to do it. The computer says it's wrong.
Did you have something for next week? Anybody have anything for next week for the program? Oh, good.
You want to try this again next week?
We can try it again next week.
We can actually get it to work.
Okay, we'll do part 2, and then just to threaten you, we'll do a camera.
We'll do.
Oh, we can do. Oh, wait a minute. It's the green things. I put green things in later.
Oh, green things.
Ethernet over power lines test. I can finish my test. It seems to be nice and solid and cheap too.
Didn't Duke Energy once upon a time sell a service like that?
Yes,
They tried, yes.
it irritated a lot of people.
A lot of hams got ticked off at them.
Yeah.
Well, this is just You plug in one, the boxes are identical. You got two boxes. You plug in one box and you plug it into your router. You plug in the other box and you plug in your IP device, your Ethernet device, not Wi-Fi, Ethernet device directly into it. And they got it, it's pretty nice. The TP-Link version, I got an old version, it's got a nice link light. It says, here it is. You plug it in over there, and if it connects, the green light comes on.
What kind of speed do they have?
Mine's 300 meg. That's an old one. No, it's 200 meg. It's probably 5 years old. I think the new one is 400, and they go higher.
I have a pair of those that I've never even plugged in. Somebody gave them to me. I don't know if they work or not. If anybody wants them, you're welcome.
Me.
Operating.
And I'll give them to Frank if Frank wants them. But it's,
You know, what I think about for things like that, you know how if you have a TV and it's on Wi-Fi, you can just get various things happen. But if you put it on Ethernet, real Ethernet,
Yeah.
it usually works pretty good.
it looks as solid as hardwired. In fact, it's a little faster than some of my hardwired connections, truth be known. When I plugged it in, I've been having network issues. When I plugged it in, everything got good. I'm going, what? What? But I have a barn. That's my problem. The barn's 75 feet away, and the router's on the front of the house. So this looks like a nice, solid way to get there. So anything else? My wire-free camera is driving me nuts. It's got one of those, what type of sensor is it? It detects infrared movement?
PIR.
PIR. Supposedly it was PIR. I think they may be changing their story on that. The daytime, the PI works great. At night, if something triggers it, it will not go off for hours. And when it comes,
Well, it kind of makes sense. It's got a bunch of IR LEDs in there that it's blinking really fast. It probably sees that as motion.
They blink fast at night, but not in the daytime.
Yeah, because there's a sensor on there when it gets dark, or it uses the camera itself maybe.
Yeah,
Turns
now
on
that's,
the
they
IR.
shouldn't be using the camera itself. If it's PIR,
Well, no. They may use the camera to know when to turn on the IR LEDs, which has nothing to do with the PIR. That's a whole separate unit. So when it gets dark, the IR kicks in, especially around dusk. If it has levels, if it's on at 20%, it's going to be blinking quite a bit in reference to that PIR sensor.
And then the PIR sensor sees the blinking and goes, something's moving.
I'll send a picture of nothing.
I bet that's what it's doing. That makes a lot of sense about what it's doing.
one of the problems the camera has, and I noticed and I said it's probably not it, but you're bringing up a good point, is when you switch to night vision, it gets fuzzy and there's a lot of noise.
They all do.
And that's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
So that could be causing issues. It looks like movement.
Mhm.
Oh.
But that would be through the camera again instead of the PIR.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But you can see it. I could actually see it. I have it behind the barn, and it was facing the house. I could see it. The light would come on through the security camera, and the light would come on, and then it'd blink off and comes back on.
Can you adjust the sensitivity of it?
No.
No.
There's no adjustment whatsoever. But it seems to have a problem at night. And here's another trick: if you have a wall there, that's perfect. Works great day, night, doesn't matter. But if you point it out where there's no wall, nah, it's not gonna. It's gonna trigger. Somebody triggers it. It works fine till you trigger it. And if you trigger it at night, it's not gonna go off for hours. And then they went off this morning, because the sun came up, and it lasted all night. I put it out late, and it lasted all night, and the sun came up and it cut off. And it was perfect. And there were some deer out there. I caught the deer because it was daylight. It worked great. At night, no.
I had a PIR sensor on a porch light at one point, which worked great until at one point I set a 42U rack on my front porch. And when the porch light would trigger, it would light up that rack. Turning off, it would turn it back on. And I had it hooked up, so there was a buzzer in the house, and every time the light came on, it went beep, it gave a little chirp. I had to move the rack.
Yeah, I paid $249 for a little PIR sensor like that to replace my porch light sensor. I already had one in the garage, and it works great. I just cut it out, replaced it, boom, took all the electronics out, and it's fixed now, but it works great. They got it optimized.
Yeah.
So $250. Now my porch lights work properly. I've got one ordered for the other one. I'll fix the other one also. Okay. Anything else? Anybody have something they want to talk about?
You know what I could have done? I
What?
could have plugged in an Ethernet cable into that Raspberry Pi. Why didn't you say that? We'll try that again next time. I'll get it figured out. I'll hit it with a sledgehammer or something. It'll be all right.
Now, our original routers that we were using, the little hockey puck
They
things.
didn't have Ethernet.
Yeah, I use those. I used those last week. Just when we go to a remote location, I plug it into the router, and we don't have to wrestle with paths for it.
Okay.
All right, thanks for coming by. Come back when you get a chance.
Thank you.
Well, eventually, I'm not gonna wait for the end of the year, but I got the stereo board that you can use with a Arduino, and it can generate music over the internet. What was I doing with that? I wanted to have an announcement. I wanted to have a remote control announcement system. It works with the Arduino. I wanted it to work with the ESP, one of the ESP 8266 versions, but first of the year, I should have that. I'll tell you when.
Okay.
I'm going out west next week to help my son with his plumbing.
That's an expensive plumbing call, right?
I'm going to see him anyway, so might as well have some reason.
That's your story. Anything going on with you? Anything interesting?
No, I'm basically overwhelmed at work. Apologies for not making many meetings lately.
You come when you can, leave when you can. This guy just left early. I encouraged that. I told him, come in late, leave early, whenever you can come. Anything going around your area? Anything interesting?
Not really. My father moved in with us, and I've been tied up with that situation for the last couple months.
I got the 2 new Wi-Fi cameras, 960p. It's not the 1082p, it's the 960p, which I understand is a Sony standard for HD, whatever. But the definition is good, excellent lighting. It's just like the 1080s that I bought that are PoE. This is Wi-Fi, and they're $45. So I'm busy replacing everything. I got a much wider viewing angle and much better picture. Seem to be
I'm actually
stable.
gonna get another Wi-Fi camera. I'll probably do it when I leave here. Because I was having a guy, the soffit fascia came down and it's high, so I'm not gonna climb up there. But while he's up there, I'm gonna have him swap out one of the cameras. Because the one that's up there is kind of flaky. So if you were getting it from Micro Center, and I have to get it tonight because he's gonna be here tomorrow,
Oh, okay.
what would you get from Micro Center?
I don't know, we'd have to look. I do like the OnVIF stuff, that's the new stuff. They apparently have a new chipset, they have a new board set. I was showing last week the boards. You can buy the whole dang thing on the board now. You buy the board, you wire up the LEDs off the board, the infrared LEDs off the board, you wire up the antenna off the board. Everything's there on the board, and it comes with the camera chip and with the lens for $32.
Does it come with a cover?
Well, the cover's even cheaper.
Oh.
I mean, with the cover is $45. You're not gonna get one. You're talking about 150 probably. But see what they have for OnVIF. I do like to do OnVIF stuff. It's compressed. It uses .264 compression, H.264 compression, some H.265. Mine is compatible with iSpy because I use iSpy. You can have a separate thing. The new ones have SD card that you plug in. It's inside. It's waterproof. Not particularly wonderful swivel mechanism, but you set them and forget them.
One's up, it's fixed anyway. So.
Yeah, a little, not a ball that you can easily move back and forth. You have to loosen it up and jiggle it back and forth and then screw it down. But adjust it one time, you're done. But the 960p will give you a wider viewing angle and better resolution too. So 1080 is even better. The 4 megapixel, 5 megapixel I got it's if you want to pay for that. Now you're talking paid money, big money is like $70. And I've got one, and the resolution is wonderful. I can zoom around. You can digital zoom, and you still have resolution. The angle is about the same. Night vision on mine stinks, though. It's not as good as the 960p's.
I've got one of the, from Micro Center. It's one of the cheaper ones. For a while, I think it's AmQuest. They had one that was 3 megapixel at $75. TOE, waterproof camera, whatever. I got one of those, and I'm impressed by how well it does night vision.
Okay, that's one thing that's important if you're going to be using it for night vision. And good resolution.
Yeah, it's 3 megapixel. It's
Well, is it on
2360 or something?
Is it OnVIF?
No, it's
It's the old stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay if you're gonna have a few cameras. It doesn't matter. The new stuff, the compression's nice.
There's already two. This is like on the front there, 2 cameras, and this would be the third one.
And also the new cameras come with the Android software.
That's not a plus.
Okay. Yeah, it's but you
my where I work, the company bought a bunch of those little Arlo cameras, and they're very pretty and so Mac-like, but there is no way that I can watch the video directly on my computer as a thing I can save. I have to go to their website, and it pisses me off.
So the ones that I'm buying, the SV3Cs, they have the Android software, and it's different for every model. Be aware of that. But it's also compatible with iSpy, so you can get to it with any PC. And so it's a little irritating, but and I like that bleep bleep you hear periodically. That's a camera that I've selected to tell me when you see something. And you have to be careful. Outside, you're not going to do that. Inside, you set that inside where somebody walks by, and when you're gone, you just say, if anybody walks in the house, bleep bleep me. And it's SMS.
So
I think it's SMS.
If you're in California,
Yeah.
somebody walked up to my front door.
Yeah, well, it's outside, it's not good.
Oh, okay.
It's not going to work on your front
Well,
door.
if it's inside, then that's actually quite bad.
Yeah.
There should be nobody inside.
That's exactly right. You don't want it to bother you, and that's basically what I'm coming down to. Turning off the outside ones, but the inside ones, when I leave for the weekend, I turn those on. Anybody walks in, there should be nobody there.
I got my outside cameras set to alert me when somebody goes by. I blacked out about half of the driveway and the road, but I want to know when my kid walks across the front porch to go to school.
Now, he doesn't have trees in his front yard,
No.
and it's not south facing.
Yes.
Concept. It is south facing, no trees.
Yeah.
If you got trees or something that throws a shadow across it, you're screwed. But if you have the right setup, or you're east facing sunrise, it's going to beat you up. Sunset's going to beat you up.
Well, that was one of the things I liked about the cameras I've got. I'm pretty sure it is AmQuest.
Mhm.
There's an application to model where you shade out so that it doesn't react to this triangle. Nothing in there will trigger a motion event.
And I've got that with iSpy on
Okay.
every camera. You got the same thing. You select the area you want it to watch. But if you're in an area where there's sunshine and somebody has a shadow that goes across it, or the wind blows and the tree shadows the entire area, you end up blocking out everything. I got so many trees. You end up blocking out everything. So if you have a no tree area, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But if you got a sunrise or sunset coming in toward your camera and the leaves move like this, the trees move just a little bit, just whack you out. A car drives by and blocks. So be aware. Now, some of the later cameras are starting to put PIR on the real security cameras now. That's what you need, except my PIR, of course. PIR works great and solid, reliable. Oh, my goodness. That's the newer. If you see PIR and you want to do motion detection, that's the way you go for security. The new ones, they show the guy that if somebody walks in your yard and it fires up, PIR is a way to do that, or radar.
Mm-hmm.
That works really great. Stuff to look
At
at.
one point, I had my camera aimed at a street just to count cars, and it seemed pretty darn accurate. I mean, if it was a 10-second clip, it was